Okay, welcome to 9.4, factoring a trinomial when a does not equal 1. So I'll be able to factor a trinomial when a is not equal to 1. And so this is going to be, a's bigger than 1 by splitting the middle term and using the box method. So it starts off a lot the same when you compare it to factoring when a does equal 1, but then it's going to change. So now we're factoring when a doesn't equal 1. So the only thing that's changed here is now the number here, there is a number there as opposed to nothing being there, and that meant it was 1. So our first few steps are the same. First, we're going to determine the a, the b, and the c. So our a here is 3, our b is 13, and our c is 12. Okay, so now we're going to set up an I-bar, and this still says just the I-bar, but yours is going to say the I-bar and box method. And so we'll get to the box method. It's just an extension. Okay, set up an I-bar. So we've practiced this, but an I-bar, just so we have it again in our notes, is going to have A times C on top and B on the bottom. And then all of this in the center is just to brainstorm some factors. So here we go. With this problem here, I'm going to go A times C. So 3 times 12 is 36. And then my B goes down here is 13. Okay, brainstorm factors that multiply to A times C and add to B. So I need to come up with some factors here. So 1 and 36 are factors of 36. They definitely multiply to 36. They do not add to 13, however. So let's come up with something else. How about 2 and 18? Once again, they do multiply to 36, but they would not add or subtract to 13, so that's not going to work for us. 3 and 12 multiply to 36, but 3 plus 12 is 15, so that's not going to work. 4 and 9. So 4 and 9 multiply to 36, and as it turns out, they do add. 4 plus 9 is 13. So once you found the magic numbers, we're going to circle the magic numbers. Okay, this is where things get a little bit different. So we found our magic numbers, our 4 and 9. But instead of just going ahead and putting them into two sets of parentheses, we're going to use the magic numbers to split the middle term. So I'm going to copy my problem, my trinomial, down here, so that way I have it. Okay, so here's the equation, or the trinomial, that we are trying to factor here. And so we're now going to split the middle term. So this is the extra thing that needs to happen here. So my first term stays the same, 3x squared. But now this term, 13x, gets split into the magic numbers that I have there. So I have plus 4x, because it's positive, and plus 9x. And then I'm just going to bring down my n term. Okay, so notice all I did was expand this. 4x plus 9x would equal 13x. So I'm just kind of pulling them apart, but I'm pulling them apart that's going to work for me for factoring. So if I was putting this together, I'd be combining these like terms to get 13x. Okay, so coming down here, here's the new thing with the box method. Okay, once you have this all split up like this, you can use the box method to factor out what you need. And we looked at the box method when we were multiplying binomials together, and now we're going to use the box method to pull our trinomials apart into binomials. Okay, so first let me just show you what it looks like and what goes into each box. Okay, so you're just going to draw a box. What do you know? Okay, in this box, you're going to put the first term. In this box, you're going to put the last term. Okay, in these two empty boxes here, we're going to put our split middle term. So split mid term. Okay, so once you have this laid out so you know what it looks like, and I could have made that bigger, not had so cramped in there. Let's go ahead and draw a box and do this with the polynomial that we have. Okay, so first and last, so I'm going to put my 3x squared right here in this first box. Last, I'm going to put my 12 in this box, and then my split middle term. I have 4x and I have 9x. Okay, and it doesn't matter which one you put in which box. 4x could go here or it could go here, it doesn't matter. So 4x and 9x. Hopefully the color coding makes you see where each thing's coming from. And now we're going to factor out, just like when we were factoring out the greatest common factor, we're going to look here, 3x squared and 4x. What is the GCF? So factor out the GCF. So after you set up the box, we're going to factor out the GCF. Okay, so the greatest common factor, well, there's nothing I can pull out of both the 3 and the 4. There is an x in both of these, though, so I'm going to pull out an x and then use the lowest exponent. So we have an exponent of 2 and an exponent of 1 when nothing's there, so that means this is going to have an exponent of 1. Coming down here, I'm going to factor out the GCF over here. So out of 9 and 12, the greatest common factor would be 3, and I only have an x here. I do not have an x there, so I cannot factor out an x. Okay, then I'm going to factor out going up like this. So out of 3 and 9, the GCF would be 3. Out of x squared and x, the greatest common factor would be x to the power of 1. Coming over here, my GCF out of 4 and 12 is going to be 4. And then as far as the x, I only have an x in this one. I do not in there. And so I can't pull out an x. All right, as far as the signs, now this one, everything was positive. All our signs are going to be positive, but you're going to get those signs from the closest box. Okay, so I'll show you in the next problem that we try. But since this is positive, this is going to be positive. Since this is positive, this is going to be positive. Since this is positive, x will be positive. Since this is positive, this 3 will be positive. Okay, so now I just need to pull it all together. So, whoops, too far. I now have 3x plus 4 along the top. And coming down here, I have x, and since it's a positive 3, it's going to be x plus 3. All right, last step, multiply these back together. Let's make sure we came up with the right answer here. So 3x plus 4 and x plus 3. If we use our FOIL method, we're going to first multiply our front two terms together, and I get 3x squared. Then I'm going to multiply my outer terms together, and I get 9x. Then my inner terms, and I get 4x. And my last terms, and I get 12. Okay, right away I can see that this is the same as it was when I split that middle term there. If you want to take a little bit further, we can combine our like terms, and we would have 3x squared plus 13x plus 12. And that is, in fact, the original trinomial that we were given to factor. All right, so let's try a couple more problems in the video with some negatives, and then I've left you one to do on your own. Okay, so first thing we're going to do here is determine the a, the b, and the c. So our a is 2. Our b is negative 17. And our c is 33. We're going to set up the I-bar. Two times 33 is 66. and I'm going to put my b down here. And we do have a negative in this case, so we're going to get a chance to see what happens when we have a negative. So let's go through and find some factors. So right away, I'm seeing 2 and 33 multiply to 66. However, 2 and 33 are not going to add or subtract to negative 17. So now let's try 3. Oops, that's not what I meant to write. 3 and 22, not 11. So 3 and 22 multiply to 66. 22, if I subtract 3, would be 19, so that's not it. We're not there yet. How about 6 and 11? We'll add them together, and I would get 17. So I just need to figure out where to put the negative or negative so that way I do get 17. Okay, so for it to add up to a 17, I'm going to have to make them both negative. I now have a negative 6 and a negative 11. That adds up to negative 17, and a negative 6 times negative 11, well, a negative times a negative does equal a positive. So here are my magic numbers. All right, I'm going to use that to split the middle term. So I keep the first term the same. Color code this whole thing here, maybe. Keep the first term the same. I would have 2x squared. And now I'm going to split that middle term. So this negative 17 is now negative 6x minus 11x. And you can see that negative 6x minus 11x, if I were to combine my like terms, would equal negative 17x. And then on the end here, I'm going to put the 33 back. Okay, I've split it. I'm going to draw my box. Okay, so my first term goes in the top left corner, so 2x squared. My last term goes down here in the bottom right corner, so 33. And then my split terms, doesn't matter which box, negative 6x can go here, and negative 11x can go here. All right, now we're going to factor out. So you can go across first or up first, whatever you want to do. But now we have to pay attention to our signs. So I have a 2x squared and a negative 11x. Well, the sign, I'm going to first find this term right here. The sign is going to be the same as the closest box. Okay, so let's make a little note about that. The sign is the same as the closest box. Okay, so since this is a positive 2x squared, when I pull something out here, it's going to be positive. When I look for my greatest common factor out of these two terms, the greatest common factor would be an x to the power of 1. Okay, now my sign, when I factor up in this direction, is going to be a negative because the closest box to right here, so right there, is a negative. So I can go ahead and put my negative down, and now out of 6x and 33, the greatest common factor is 3, without an x, because there's an x here, but there's not here. All right, going off to the left here, I need to figure out what my sign would be for right here. Well, since this is a positive 2x squared, that's going to make this a positive, whatever I pull out. I can pull a 2 from my numbers, because 2 goes into 2 and into 6. And I can also pull an x. I have an x squared and an x to the power of 1, so I'm going to pull out a x. All right, coming down here, I have a negative here, so that means the closest box is going to tell me what this should be. This is going to be negative. And I'm going to pull out an 11. 11 goes into both of these. Okay, now I just need to put these together in parentheses. So I have my binomial up top, which is x minus 3. And my binomial off to the side, this negative 11 tells me how to connect my two terms. So it's 2x minus 11. There we go. I think that factoring is so fun for some reason. I hope you guys enjoy it also, but it's like little puzzles to me. All right, so this is our answer. I'm going to go ahead and use the FOIL method to multiply it back together to make sure I have the right answer. So front would be 2x times x, just 2x squared. That's the front. And then I'm going to do my outer two terms. So x times a negative 11 gives me negative 11x. Then inner, forgot where I was in my FOIL method. So I did FOI, so inner, negative 3 times 2x would be negative 6x. And then last, negative 3 times negative 11 is positive 33. You can look, I've already gotten to where I split the middle term, and if I were to combine these, I would be back up to this. All right, another one for us to do together. Let's find the A, the B, and the C. I'm not going to write them all out this time. I think we've practiced it enough that you can probably just pull it out of here and put it right into your I-bar. But my A times my C would be 5 times, and make sure you keep track of those signs, times a negative 8 is going to give me negative 40 on top. And then on the bottom, I'm going to put a 6. And now I need to brainstorm some factors, and I'm coming up with 2 and 20 would multiply to 40, but would not add or subtract to 6. So now I'm going to try 4 and 10. 4 would multiply to 40 and would subtract to 6. So one of these has got to be a negative. So now I need to determine which one. Well, if I make the 10 negative and I have negative 10 plus 4, that's going to give me a negative 6. So that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to just go ahead and erase that. But if I make this one negative, now I have a negative 4 plus 10. Well, that does give me a positive 6 because the 10 is bigger than the 4. So the sign on the bigger number gives you the sign on your answer. All right, so here are my magic numbers. Negative 4 times 10 also does equal negative 40. Okay, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to split the middle term. So I have 5x squared minus 4x minus 10x, and then my last term here is minus 8. And I can then put it in my box and factor. Okay, top left-hand corner. And feel free to stop the video at any time if you're feeling confident you want to move ahead and try to figure it out on your own. So 5x squared, bottom right-hand corner, negative 8. And then here's where I'm going to put my split middle term. I have negative 4x, and I have negative 10x. All right, so now let's factor out. So I'm going to go up first. This is positive, so this is going to be positive. I can't pull anything out of the 5 and 4, but out of the x squared and x, I can pull an x to the power of 1. Okay, this box is negative, so this is going to be negative. And out of 10 and 8, I can pull out a 2, cannot pull out an x. Now I'm going to go to the left here. Since this is positive, this is going to be positive. I can pull out both a 5 and an x. Let me squeeze it in here. I didn't leave enough room for myself, really. But a 5x. And now, since this is negative, this is going to be negative, and I can pull out a 4. And if you want, before you go ahead and write your answer down here, check to make sure your signs make sense. 5x times x, they're positive, this should be positive, and equals 5x squared. This is positive, this is negative. You should end up with a negative sign here. So 5 times negative 2 does give us this number here. This is negative times a positive, so this can be a negative here, perfect. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And then negative 2 times negative 4 should give us a positive 8. So right there I have a mistake. So that's, even though I didn't plan on the mistake, I'm kind of glad it came up because now we can see, oh, if you go back through and check all your numbers, you're going to find your mistakes. So where is my mistake? Well, I did look at it, and here's the problem. I had a positive 10 here, which means when I split my middle term, this should have been positive. If I checked right here, negative 4x plus 10 equals 6. If I had negative 4x minus 10, that was going to equal negative 14. So some of you might have already seen that mistake, but I did catch it just now. It's always good to pause at some point and check your work, go back, make sure you're doing everything right. Okay, so since we did that, This is positive. That's going to make this guy positive. So now x times a positive 2 equals a positive, or I'm sorry, 5x times a positive 2 equals a positive 10x. And now my negative times a positive does give me a negative 8. So now it's going to work out. All right, so x plus 2 times 5x, the negative 4 is what's going to tie them together, these two terms. So 5x minus 4. There we go. That's the answer. I'm not going to multiply them back together this time because we already did that process in the boxes before we wrote it all down. Okay, I left one problem for you to try. So go ahead and try it so that way I can walk around and determine right off the bat how we're feeling about this. Thanks for watching.